Let me start by saying that this year we are commemorating the SAF Day in the midst of a global pandemic. That's obvious. But what may not be so obvious, at least about the weight of the impact, is that this COVID-19 pandemic is more than a public health problem. For the SAF Day, I want to focus on what this post-COVID world means for national security, external relations, and the SAF. So let me deal with some key facets in that context. First of all, we cannot avoid the effects of this contestation. And for Singapore, our small country, at the geographical intersection of East and West, will be acutely impacted for both trade and security. And that's a clear given. The US-China relationship is all important, but the overall geopolitical context will add to the tensions. If we start from Asia, what happens to Japan, Korea, and India bears close watching. If you move on to Russia and Europe, these are other key pieces, because the US seeks to reduce European dependence on its military and capability, as well as increase European purchases of US goods. And I think the stress on the US, on the transatlantic security alliances, may weaken. The sum of it is that we are witnessing the beginning of the weakening, if not unraveling, of the post-World War II constructs over the last 70 years. What will replace it is, I think, is anybody's guess. If we are fortunate, the pace of change will be gradual, but I think the odds of a disruptive change can never be discounted. These changes that I've described would have occurred without COVID-19, but the pandemic has further stressed the region, particularly ASEAN, because with its many emerging market economies, will be saddled with greater public debt and rising unemployment. All countries, because of COVID-19 pandemic, had to increase fiscal spending. But few, if any, especially within ASEAN, had the strength of past reserves to draw on without having to incur massive debt. Singapore was fortunate we had reserves to draw on, but for many countries, other countries, in fact, if not all other countries, they had to meet their fiscal deficits from debt. Furthermore, demands for goods and services, for example, tourism, which ASEAN countries are very much dependent on, will be weak for a few years, and commodity prices will remain low because demand is low. And all this means is that ASEAN as a whole will grow much slower. I've taken some time to put into detail the post-COVID aftermath which Singapore will have to deal with in terms of national security. We cannot be divorced from this context. And at the same time, known threats remain, whether it's the South China Sea disputes, terrorism, cyber threats. Now, we'll continue to generate new units to meet our security needs. I've talked about our Maritime Security Task Force at our Committee of Supply earlier this year to help us better deal with maritime counterterrorism and sea robbery and piracy. I said that we have added 4 patrol vessels. We started refurbishment and they'll go into operations soon. First off, we've mobilized more than 6,000 servicemen and women from the SAF, MINDEF, DSO, DSTA, including NS men who volunteered. Ex-regulars also stepped up to volunteer their services. MINDEF and the SAF was asked to command the C2 systems, the personnel, logistics, to assist the whole of government effort, other agencies, whether it was distributing masks, to run the dorms, contact tracing, isolation, and containing the spread of infection. Let me mention what the DSTO, DSO, and ST companies have been doing. We developed temperature self-check systems, deployed at 17 public transport stations and interchanges from June this year. We have built a mobile swap station to enable swap operations to be done safely and swiftly. And the DSO have provided key testing of COVID-19 samples and UV disinfection cabinets and so on. We'll have to respond nimbly to the post-COVID world. As we adapt our practices, we will remain steadfast in our commitment to protect Singapore and our interests. And the MINDEF and SAF's commitment to national security will continue with the strong support of government and people. Thank you.